Coming to get down. I'm coming. I'm coming. Coming to dance. To dance. We're gonna dance.
Chat Night Africa broadcast about to begin.
We're gonna get down. We're gonna get down. We're gonna party.
Chat Night Africa broadcast about to begin.
Boogie woogie. And when we jam.
Chat Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
I'm ready. I'm coming.
I'm coming back today with very, very uncomfortable questions about what you least want to hear.
We're gonna get down.
Retirement.
We're gonna get down. We're gonna dance.
This is Chat Night Africa live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
I'm coming.
Chat Night Africa, straight talk on matters that matter.
We're gonna dance. I'm ready. I'm coming.
Broadcast assistants, Emmanuel YND and John Tanto Matchfire live from Bamenda, Central Africa.
We're gonna party. Party hardy. We're gonna boogie. Boogie woogie. We're gonna dance. Side to side. This song right here.
This is Chat Night Africa about to begin.
I'm ready. I'm coming. I'm ready. I'm ready to get down. I'm ready. I'm coming.
I'm coming right back. This is Chat Night Africa and your host is Divine Chamukon.
I'm ready. I'm coming.
I'm right back.
We're gonna dance. We're gonna dance. I'm coming back.
I'm right here
I'm coming back.
with you
I'm coming.
with Chat Night Africa live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
I'm coming to dance. We're gonna dance. We're gonna dance. We're gonna dance. We're gonna dance.
On Chat Night Africa today, breezy, extremely jaunty, extremely effervescent content. Are you ready for this? You better be. If you ask for firewood kitchen, you better be ready for smoke. It's gonna be dynamite, it's gonna be smoky on Chat Night Africa today.
I'm ready. I'm coming. I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Yes, I am right here. I am back with you for yet another edition of your favorite broadcast. Today, we have something interesting for you, but you may not like the content. Well, I know that for sure because what treats malaria fever, if you are from Africa, is very, very bitter medication. But it's the bitter medication that the patient needs to get well. And so on Chat Night Africa today, we'll be talking about uncomfortable issues, perhaps things you hate to talk about. Stay tuned. In just a moment, we will be getting started. But before we take off the ground with the bitter stuff, here is something to sweeten things a little bit up. Get it? We will get that song in just a moment. And I want to tell you that we have Mr. Pius Awa, who will be connecting from the great state of Houston. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, we have some good stuff for you. You will love the content. Stay tuned. This is some good Makossa. If you are not from Cameroon, this is called Makossa. Before we travel to Houston to meet Mr. Pius Awa, who is a senior financial consultant. Share, tag your friends, invite your friends for this breezy broadcast. This is Chat Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Are you ready for this? Sakai, or man for dawn. After this song, we're traveling to Houston. And this is Chat Night Africa Live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. This is Chat Night Africa Live. Invite your friends. We have some spicy stuff on the show. Invite your friends, invite your friends. This is going to be spicy. Yeah, this is the nature of Chat Night Africa. Live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Okay. Pun mun pakan bouger, Sakai. Oh my God. And Mr. Awa, send your request to join, and we'll connect with you in just a moment. I see you are ready. Uncomfortable questions don't disappear because someone doesn't like to talk about them. Not death, not retirement. Like death, retirement is inevitable. So, why do we avoid the subject? At Chat Night Africa, we don't. After all, it makes sense to have your umbrella handy before the rains start to pour. In other words, confront head-on retirement questions before retirement arrives. So, how prepared are you for retirement? I didn't say you should retire tomorrow. Some people say they are too young. Some people say they don't earn a lot of money to be able to prepare for retirement. Now, these questions are legitimate. Their answers are legitimate. The unfortunate thing is that, like gravity, if you jump from a story building, you are certainly to crash. Preparedness or not, you will face retirement, perhaps at a time when you are least prepared for. You better look for your umbrella before it starts to rain. We have a senior financial consultant who will take your questions. Post your questions and I will direct them to Mr. Pius Awa, who is momentarily to be connecting from the great state of Texas, precisely in the great city of Houston. Houston is one of the most beautiful cities in the United States. Mr. Awa, we are now going to connect with you. This is Chat Night Africa. In a moment, Mr. Awa appears on the screen to take your questions. And if you have any questions about retirement, preparing for retirement, how you should prepare for retirement, please post the questions and I will relay them to Mr. Pius Awa. So in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Awa will be appearing on the screen. I see indications that he's about to join the broadcast. I want to thank all of you for coming on the line and lined up for broadcast as medical topics. We will, in the coming weeks, be talking about premature ejaculation. We will be talking. Yes, Mr. Awa, how are you?
I'm good, Brother Divine. It's good to be back.
Very, very good. I'm glad to be connecting with you. And how's Houston today, by the way?
It's getting hot. It's that time of the year.
I love Houston, except for the heat. I don't know how you guys are coping there.
No, we love it. It's a great place to be. It's a great dynamic metropolitan area. It's not different from the DC metro area, except that we don't get to deal with the politics.
No Republicans, no Democrats.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
you better deal with the politics, because if you are not on the table as participant, you will be on the table as a menu.
yeah, of course. So,
So better join us in Washington,
and
D.C.
yeah, we serve a great barbecue out here, so don't worry.
That alone will take me to Houston in the next few
Yeah,
hours.
so we know how to make people dinner.
Mr. Awa, thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Awa is a senior financial consultant. And as you must have realized, he is connecting remotely from the great state of Texas, precisely from Houston, one of the
Absolutely.
most glamorous cities in the United States. Mr. Awa, I said in the introduction that questions about retirement, like death, are very uncomfortable. People
Yes,
don't want to talk about retirement. But like death,
absolutely.
retirement is sure to come. When you start work, the next thing you start wondering about, if you have some sense, is what happens the day you are no longer working, the day you are retired. Unfortunately, we love to procrastinate, put it for another time. Well, when I work after 30 years, I start thinking about it. It's just too early. Let me just enjoy life now. Mr. Awa,
Yes,
first
sir.
question to you. Why do you think that people avoid the subject of retirement? Let's put it in perspective.
That's a very good question, Brother Divine. Can you hear me okay? And is the
Yes,
lighting okay? Is
yes,
my
yes, sir.
lighting good enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, why do people procrastinate planning for retirement or avoid discussing the topic, right? It is from an educational standpoint, the first thing is the awareness. What, when we get raised first by family, then by our school system, what is it that we get indoctrinated in? Uh, get out of school, get a career, get a good job, and work, right? And make
Get a
money.
wife,
Uh, yeah. So that's the social system that
get a
teaches
wife for
us
your
that
husband.
you need to be somebody. But what happens with that is we get up, we get out of school, or we get into a profession for and not everybody, at least now everybody wants to go to school, but not everybody had that luxury. But when you get out and you get married, what happens, Brother Divine, is that you start a family, right? So you start a family, and so your immediate responsibilities become taking care of raising that family and providing for that family. You start having kids. And so the whole notion of planning for retirement is distant. And because maybe for our generation, you didn't pay attention to the way people retired, or you grew up in a system where there is no solid retirement, social retirement system, there is no way. In the West, that has been a problem for over 100 years. So the
about
where
retirement.
yeah,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
yeah, they have a socialized retirement system. Out here in the US, there are several different things that you could do. But one of the main reason people avoid talking about it is because most people think that the here and now, especially immigrants, they migrate for a reason, and that reason is to improve the current standard of living and maybe the standard of living of families that they left back home on the continent. So you and I work and we take care of the families that we start here. We support the ones that we left back home. And the last thing we think about is what are we going to do for retirement? So it's an avoidance sort of by design of the situation that we find ourselves in and the lack of education to plan and think ahead. Okay, so that'll be the short answer to that. There are other things that go in there, like you know, people they don't want to think about the fact that they'll retire. We want to feel good now, so we want the goodness of the moment. We don't think about tomorrow, so we don't want to put anything for tomorrow. It's the same thing with college. So maybe back on the continent and people traditionally we buy everything that we own, whether it's a house or college, we pay for it. So there's no system back on the continent, at least not to my knowledge, or maybe they are around now, that my parents, for example, could have taken a loan to put me through college, right? They had to save money, find money, borrow money from friends and family or whatever to put me through college, and it's the same thing. So they bought everything, and so there was very little money and very little opportunity to put money anywhere for their retirement. So
Yes. So, but I have talked to a lot of people, and they say they don't want to talk about retirement now. They rather talk about it later on in life because they just don't have the money to put aside. Is preparing for proper retirement uh, it's a function of how much you earn. Does it play a role?
that's a very good point. So what I should have done before answering your first question was just lay some markers on the ground with regards to the topic, right? For everybody, for every one of our listeners today. And before I come back to that question, whether it is a function of what you make, uh, when you think about retirement, and we all should, there are some things that we have to consider. Time, when do we want to retire? Okay? And how do we plan, what do we plan to do on retirement? So retirement every day is going to be like a Saturday if you're not going to a regular job. What do you plan to do with all that time? And what kind of instruments or what kind of planning are you doing to make sure that there will be income for retirement? And this point actually connects directly with your question whether retirement is a function of how much you make today. It is and it is not. Retirement has to do with your ability to retire. You have to consider where income is going to come, because when you retire, you're not going to stop having bills, medical issues. In fact, if you had money enough today to last you the rest of your days, would you be working?
This is a very important question.
Yeah, so most people will not have to work if they had money for the rest of their days. So retirement is connected to how much money you're going to be able to have when you decide to do that, to take care of maintain your lifestyle for the rest of your days. Now, the things that you need to consider is that what happens if there are health challenges in retirement? What happens to the cost of living that goes up? Is the money that you have today able to keep up with the increased cost of living, increased cost of healthcare challenges in the future, you know, and what kind of systems that you're planning to use for retirement when the time comes. So you may make good money today, and if you have bad habits, you don't save, or you don't have an idea the kind of lifestyle you want to live in retirement, and you don't know when you're going to retire, it doesn't matter how much you make today, which is why I said it's yes and a no. Just making good money today is no guarantee that you're going to retire comfortably in future. And I'll give you an example, okay? If you are in the United States and you are still lucky to have a company that pays you pension, imagine that you're making $100,000 a year today, and in retirement, you are expected to only make $40,000. What is your lifestyle today at $100,000? And what do you picture your lifestyle to be at $40,000 annual income 20 years from today, with possible healthcare challenges and with a possible increase in cost of living? So what people need to be thinking is, what where am I going to have retirement income from, and what am I doing with the income that I make today to ensure that I have a steady flow of income for retirement that would be able to take care of the cost of living then. You with me? So
Right.
that is the first thing. So there is this uh, misconception that if I have a good paying job today, I will probably have a good retirement. If and for and if we want to come to people who live out in the West that have more advanced vehicles to plan for retirement, most people in the States that have 401ks, and this is something that I see in my work all the time, they believe that just by having a 401k, which for people on the continent, it is a retirement, it is what we call a defined contribution retirement plan, which you fund yourself. The money is in the investment market and growing or losing, but the expectation is that when you retire, there would have been a pot of money grown in the market for you to retire off of, but it's exposed to risks and stuff like that. So most people just think that I have a good job, my company offers a 401k, so retirement is set. I don't need to think about anything else. They have a rude awakening waiting for them. So with regards to the question, that's one situation where how much you make may not have anything to do with retirement, because you're not doing anything about retirement specifically.
When I talk to many people, especially young people just graduating from university, they said, well, I mean, I just graduated from university and I don't need to worry about retirement now. Is that a smart way to look at this thing? You know, I'm young, I'm 25 years old. I just joined the public service in the cases, in situations in Africa where people write examinations and go into the public service. I just started a business. Why should I be thinking about retirement now? At what point do you really start worrying, talking, confronting the questions of retirement?
And that's another great question. Time, right? In if you remember back to our last broadcast, we talked about time, the role that time plays in building and accumulating wealth. Okay? So, and of course, you also start good habits young, right? It, you know, old habits and bad habits die hard. So most young people make the mistake of getting more in tune to the fact that I want to I want to look good. So I have a good job. What I need to do is to rent a nice house or start building a nice house, buy a nice car, wear nice clothes, and have nice things to show the people around us that we have a good job, right? Otherwise, how else does the people around you know that you're doing well? Is these things. But these things tie down their money, Brother Divine. Okay, so back home, uh, you get a car, get a nice house, and then we've not even talked about the wife and kids. So how much of your income actually goes to savings? hardly any. In fact, you start finding yourself in debt. The problem is when you're young, you need to start saving because money needs time to grow. So if you graduated at 25, came out of one of those professional schools or whatever, and started a civil service job, for example, in your 20s, let's say you're not married, it's smarter to start building up your savings. If you start thinking about retirement then, and you start putting money away on a regular basis, then you would have many, many years. Maybe the next 30 years of your working life, if you're in your 20s or your 30s, by the time you get to 60, you would have saved a tidy amount of money. Now, the difference between people on the continent and people out of the continent is that people on the continent may not have uh, institutionalized instruments that are designed for the purpose as much as people in the West. Okay, so but you have to start early because you have to use the wealth formula that I talked about. Put money away, give it time so that it can grow, and find a place that gives you a good rate of return that can outpace inflation at least and taxes. Because uh, taxes may not be a problem right now on the continent because of the porous nature of our tax system, but in other places, you always have to factor in taxes. So in retirement, you pay taxes. So it doesn't mean that when you retire, money is free of taxation in certain places. So, but start early. It's a misconception not to start early and put it off. But because of social pressure, people want to show what they have accomplished. They want to feel and look good, but they're not thinking about the future when they cannot work as hard and they will not be able to feel good. You have to imagine that in retirement, your income will drop at least 50%. What are you doing to take care of that balance of 50%? It has to be on you.
This is Chat Night Africa, and my guest today is the senior financial consultant, Mr. Pius Awa. He's connecting from the state of Houston, from the city of Houston in the state of Texas.
Texas, yes.
Yeah, Texas. We are talking about retirement, those things you need to know, even though they may not be the things you want to hear. The things you want to hear are not always the things that make you progress. He's talking about usually young people think, or not necessarily young people, a lot of people want to acquire stuff to give an impression of themselves. And that, like you say, as a financial consultant, ties down, holds down their income. Either they're buying cars, very expensive cars, that really don't appreciate, that's the word, or they're buying big houses bigger than they can really afford, and like somebody said the last time, they sleep in those houses having bad dreams, hallucinating. So if you make smart decisions, you end up the winner. And that's why we are talking on the issue today. We're facing the issues today head on. The other question when we designed this topic, I talked to many people. I talked to people in the Gambia. I talked to people in Malawi. I talked to people in Cameroon, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. A lot of things that people do as a way of prepping for retirement is they get into this Njangi houses. In Malawi, it's called Bankonde, or bank at your doorsteps. In the Gambia, it's called Osusu. I think that's also what it's called in Liberia. In Cameroon, it's called Njangi or Tongtin, depending on what part of Cameroon you are. In Tanzania, it's called Opatu. In Ethiopia, it's called Eko. Basically, across Africa, people come together to put money and so that they can execute big projects like building houses and so on and so on. Now, is building a house a form of investing towards your retirement? In Africa, people do that a lot. People build houses, or if somebody is a nurse, upon retirement, he opens a little store, medication sales store, or people just do lots of things. What is your comment about that as a way of preparing for retirement?
That's equally awesome. I'm glad you brought up the aspect of real estate. So in my experience doing this over the last 8 years, I run into friends of mine, uh, other Africans, uh, and I'm sure you've experienced that. Most people that are listening can relate. Uh, we still have this notion that we want to go retire back home, right? I know it's prevalent in the Nigerian community that I'm very into, and also in the Cameroonian community, and even in the Liberian community that I'm married into. There are people, you know, always building stuff back home. And I talk to a lot of people and I try to help them plan for retirement. And they say, don't worry, Pius, I'm not going to retire out here. I'm going to go retire back home. I'm building my retirement back home. And I'm like, how are you doing that? Well, I'm building my retirement home, or you know, I have friends that are building mini cities. For those who don't know, these are rental properties in typically in university towns where students can rent as hostels, and that is going to be their source of retirement. Now, my comment to that is, uh, historically, real estate has been in Africa, you know, a good form of investment. Okay, for the simple fact that our the population growth, especially in urban area, are creating a large need for residential housing and stuff like that. The proliferation of universities. So if you had landed property, there's a good chance that there is a source of income that is gonna come out of that. Now, whether that income is going to be able to maintain your standard of living is another thing. Should that be our only form of, um, or our most dominant tool for retirement? Retirement, Brother Divine, and for everybody listening, you you have to have multiple sources of income. So you have to know what you're doing today. If you're building a house, what is going to supplement that income if something were to happen? If the cost of living goes up, if sickness comes, what is going to supplement that? And then for people that are here that are doing that, I usually tell them it's good and fine to have investments on the continent, but you've lived here 20 years. You have your kids here. You cannot just be oblivious of what you're doing here. You've spent most of your adult life in a place that has uh, the institutions, the infrastructure, the tools to help you build a retirement. If you don't take advantage of them, how well do you think you're going to go retire back home in? What if the healthcare situation is still as it is today? What if the transportation system is still the way it is today? You would find yourself coming back here and you would not have taken advantage of the institutions, infrastructure, and programs and products that are here to help you build that. So you have to do that simultaneously. And it's, by the way, it's smart and smarter to have multiple sources of retirement income stream coming. So yes, it's a good thing to engage in building houses and using it. So for somebody that's not out here in the West, that may be a good source of retirement income to develop some properties that would generate retirement income as an investment property. If that person is, say, a market uh, a market woman, for example, that sells groceries in the market and they don't really have a formal career, they don't contribute into any social insurance system, they don't have a pension because they're not a government employee, what chance? They cannot sell produce for the rest of their life. But as you said, maybe they can acquire some land, build a store, and have that give them some income. The question is, will that be enough to take care of healthcare issues that come up? Will that be enough to just put food on the table and take care of your own livelihood?
And as we said the last time, Mr. Awa, if you're going to get into one of those Njangi or Tongtin or Ususu houses, whether here or overseas in Africa, you may want to look at those that yield your contributions into them build some interest. You don't just put money somewhere and at the end of the year, you're happy that you got some lump sum. It's not a bad idea to put away money, but it's a better idea to put away money where there is interest accruing on that money. You want to comment on that before we move on?
Absolutely. So in our system out here, okay, and when I say that, I mean people who live out in the diaspora. In most Western countries, there are already instruments that you can use to grow money for the purposes of retirement. And depending on what instrument that is, there are certain advantages that you get for it. The underlying point here to this question that I think people should think about is, first of all, we need to be thinking about it and talking about it and asking questions about retirement, right? And once you start, the first question is, do you want to retire? And if so, what are you doing about it? When and how much do you need so that you can put a timeline? Now, when you do that, then it's going to trigger, where do I go to do what I need to do to make sure that I have a secure retirement, which comes to now, if I'm putting money somewhere, am I going to use Njangi that doesn't bear me interest, or am I going to use uh, Njangi that's interest bearing? Okay, and when I take the Njangi money, what do I do with it? The point I raised the last time we talked about this, the Njangi is not a very good investment for anything, because mind you, Njangis usually run for 12 months or less. I've never seen a Njangi that runs for more than 12 months because it becomes complicated how you keep an account for the growth of the money. So at the end of 1 year, the pot is split and then we start again afresh. So if you pick, what do you do with that money to make sure that it continues growing is the question right now. So it is, you could invest it in property that you could sell later on. If you don't have access to banking institutions, you could find a credit union that gives a high interest and just build that portfolio. And I think that conversations like this would stimulate on the continent opportunities to be able to grow money in a way that you can have a portfolio. I can have a bank account at a credit union, and it's maybe a deposit, and I know they have certificates of deposit accounts, but how do you turn that into a retirement portfolio? It's something that people on the continent, have to research and get it. I'm sure that there are certain things, it's just not as common, because we're not there. But when you use those type of instruments here, you have to think about time. So if you save in a traditional retirement uh, program out here in the diaspora, one of the things that you get as an advantage is tax deferral. So they don't charge you taxes while the money is growing. They give you time until you start taking it for retirement. Okay. And then, of course, it may be a deduction from taxation and all those other things, but it's always important to make sure that the money is growing. You cannot just do on no interest. You're not going to keep up with inflation. And 20 years from now, if you're picking the Njangi and putting it under your pillow, the money would have lost value over time.
And talking about credit unions, you mentioned there are some credit unions in Africa with accounts that yield very high rates, percentages of interest. So you want to, when you go to a credit union, you don't just go put money there and walk away. You should ask questions. Are there programs that they can sponsor if you want to get into business? Are there programs that they can sponsor? Are there accounts which yield greater interest? Same as in the banks here. You said last time, and I wanted to comment on that, Mr. Awa. Most times we go and put money in banks here. You objected to the idea. You want to repeat
Absolutely.
why? You want to repeat why?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be happy to, because it's another big misconception. So the banking system anywhere in the world was never designed for the customers to be able to make money in the banks. The banking system was designed to facilitate financial transactions for ordinary people at a cost. Okay, so the bank is doing us a service for which they charge us. Okay, they keep our money safe so that we're not burglarized. They process our financial transactions. We receive paychecks and we write checks off of the account, and we have some accountability. And for these, we pay a fee. And because they keep our money and they've had that trust with us, they can invest it and do other things even back to us at a higher interest rate. So they take other, and that's what it is. So if you put money in the bank with the objective of growing the money, you're actually spinning your wheels because it does not align with the world formula. You don't have a good rate of return, so it's not growing. It's not outpacing inflation. It's not outpacing taxes. So you're actually losing when you save in a bank. Should you have a bank account? Of course, yes, because we have needs to be able to access our money. And so you have to have some money in the bank account, but your savings have to be in instruments other than the bank, instruments that give you growth for your money. And for retirement, especially instruments that are going to give you tax deferral because you want your money to compound while it's growing. I'll give you a simple example. If you have $100 in a bank earning 0.5%, it will take you 152 years for that $100 to become $200 at 0.5%. It's a simple formula. You divide 72 by half. That's how long it would take at 0.5% for money to double. So you have to find a place that gives you at least 4% or more in the West, because in the States, inflation averages 3% a year. So if you're not growing your money by at least 3%, you're not keeping up with inflation. Tax deferral is very important. If you can save on taxes today, a 20% savings on taxes for people that pay taxes is a 20% gain, Brother Divine. But the thing again is we don't think like that. Do you see a 20% saving in your taxes as a 20% profit? We don't get taught that. Okay, so people don't think that they need to understand how much they pay in tax and how much they can save in taxes. So when you combine that two, you must have a plan, a vehicle that gives you growth. So that retirement is a target, right? The target is for most people age. I'll retire when I'm 65. It has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with how much money you have. So if your target is, I want to retire by 65 with $500,000 in my bank account, you need to know what you need to do at 40 something.
This is Chat Night Africa, and we are talking uncomfortable questions about retirement. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Awa.
Yeah, so you have to know what exactly you need to do at what age you are to get there. So for most of us, the very first point we talked about is, why are people not talking about it? They're not talking about it because we're not educated to think about it, because they are focused on the noun. And the other thing is they think they have time. Okay, we don't have time. We have to think about it now, and we have to do something about it now. So if you want to get to $500,000 in 20 years, what do you need to do today? How much do you need to be saving today for retirement? Where do you need to be saving that money? How much interest you need to be earning so that in 20 years you have $500,000 and you can go on retirement?
Very important
mathematical problem.
Correct. And very important questions. You don't have to be in the United States or Europe. I mean, if you're in Africa, wherever you are in Africa, wherever you want to save your money, you want to ask yourself, where I am saving this money, does the money grow? If it's not growing, then you should look for where your money produces bigger yields. By the time you are retiring, it's just enough. It's good to save money, to put money away. No question about that. But it's better when you put money away, where by the time you collect, you get the money, it has doubled or tripled. That just makes sense. You don't have to be in the United States. Now, somebody listening to us, Mr. Awa, must be asking this question, but where I am in the United States or Europe, where do I start? Where do I start? What are the instruments?
Very that's a great question. So in the
Because many
diaspora
people think
we
that you go put the money in a CD account. You go to the bank, they tell you, well, put it in the CD and so on. Okay, you said
yeah
CD isn't even the best way to do it. So where do
no
people actually start
okay
putting away money
so
so that this money yields big profits by the time they retire? That's bottom line.
okay so remember last time that this would have been a good opportunity to use some visuals, but I'll do as best an explanation as I can. Okay, so in 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 the West, I believe this is also in Europe and most Western countries, but in North America, for example, right? Most people, I mentioned this earlier, most people who work in corporate America today probably have a 401k. A 401k is a defined contribution plan. That means that our contributions into those plans have been defined. We know how much is leaving our paycheck and going into that plan, but we don't know how much we are getting out. Okay? Most people have it, and the expectation is that they're going to have a comfortable retirement. They don't have to do anything else. If you plan to retire, you have to have your own plan. So there are other plans that are that's like fading out now. It's there. Everybody knows about pensions, but very few companies, less than 11% of companies in America today offer pension plans. Pension is a defined benefit. So the first one was defined contribution, 401ks, and pension is defined benefit. If you're in a pension plan, how much you're going to get in retirement is already predetermined. That's why I mentioned earlier that that predetermination in most cases, it's a pay cut. So let's say you are earning $100,000. The company is going to probably pay you in retirement for the rest of your days 40% of that. That's what you're going to get. So you get to 65 and you get a 60% pay cut. Look at your lifestyle today and look at your lifestyle then in the future where everything is more expensive. Are you going to cope on 40% of your income today? So you have to do something else to supplement for the other 60%, which in the States, we have things like individual retirement accounts, IRAs, you can use them. You can use cash value life insurance, is what I talked about in the last show. It's a great way to build tax deferred, tax free retirement or tax advantage retirement. So and of course pass on a tax-free death benefit. There's one thing that we're going to come to when we're talking about retirement. We shouldn't only think about income to keep our livelihoods. What if in retirement we have health challenges? How does You can have 500,000 and have a heart triple bypass? That's going to take away about $300,000 just before you get out of the hospital. So what does $200,000 do to you? What if you have a stroke and you have to rehabilitate yourself out of that? You will burn through that money with one hospital stay. So what happens for the rest of your life? Now you are alive, you cannot work, but you are sick. So we don't only have to think about income, but we have to think about how do we address the challenges of retirement, one of which is longevity, living too long, and it's going to happen. And the other one is having health challenges or disability challenges, which come with old age. Okay, so it's very imperative to have plans on your own. One of the things that people out here, our folks, because we work so hard, we're actually getting a second chance at having a career. We're starting late. We maybe are in our 30s already. We have families and we have our parents and siblings and extended family to care for. We are so focused on doing that that we're not thinking about ourselves and retirement. And we just lock in our brains that, well, my job has a 401k, so I'll have a retirement. You need to know what's happening in the 401k plan, and you need to have a backup plan. You need to have something that is going to supplement that.
You talk about cash value life insurance. Would you please throw light on that? How does it work? Because it's sounding like sweeter than 401k that most companies offer. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. So again, it's understanding and for people on the continent, this is predominantly, as far as I know, uh mostly in the Western countries right now. So for people in North America, to be specific, and I know this is also in Europe, you can either save money in the banks, you can save money in the investment industry, or you can save money in the insurance industry. These are the three houses that make up the financial industry. Now, and using either one of them comes with advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage of saving in a bank is that you don't make any money. You don't grow your money. The only thing a bank gives you is safety.
Security.
Okay? You can go take your money, but you cannot grow money in the bank. So because of that, most people want to go to the investment industry. They want to buy stocks, buy bonds, they want to save in 401ks, buy mutual funds or stuff like that, or they want to go into real estate and buy and flip properties or buy investment properties. Okay? The other place that you can save money is the insurance industry. The insurance industry gives you some benefits for saving money with them. When you save money, there are two main types of savings accounts in the insurance industry: cash value life insurance and annuities. Annuities is a self-funded retirement plan. Okay, so let's say you have $100,000 and you're worried you've saved it over the course of 20 years and you're worried about living long and outliving your money. You can give that $100,000 to an insurance company. They're going to give you an annuity contract. Usually, the most it will be is 10 years. It could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 10 years. And they'll tell you, okay, Brother Divine, we're going to hold this money for the next 10 years for you. We're going to be giving you interest on this money every year, maybe 2% if it's a fixed annuity. Maybe they're going to give you an average of 6 to 7% if it's an indexed annuity. And I'll be happy to explain these things, but for the purpose of time, if I'm talking over anybody's head, don't worry. Hopefully, we're going to do a show and break down some of these stuff. Or you can do it in a variable annuity, which means that your money is put in the market. The market has risks. Okay. Now, that's one kind of savings plan in the insurance industry, an annuity. Annuity can be fixed interest, so they give you 2% for 10 years. And if you use that formula that I tell you, 72 divided by 2 is what? 74 divided by 2 is what? 36 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in 36 years, that 100,000 is going to be 200,000. Now, you know it's not going to be, but anyway, if you have 6%, you know that in 12 years it's double. 72 divided by 6 is 12. So 12 years, that 100,000 becomes 200,000. Now, the insurance company, if you want to take income, they're going to pay you income for the rest of your life. Regardless of how long you live, you will always get some money. That's an annuity. The other thing in the insurance industry is cash value life insurance. So you buy a life insurance policy, but that life insurance policy is also a savings account. So you pay a little bit more than the cost of insurance. And that little bit more over the cost of insurance goes towards gaining interest. Okay. And today they are like very incredible hybrid designs that take advantage of market indices. They give you like really high return, average 7-8%, and with that, they also give you a guarantee that you will never lose money. So you have high rate of return, average about 7-8%. You have a guarantee of maybe 0 or 1%. So you are paying your premiums or savings. It is growing in that account. It's buying you some life insurance. And later on in retirement, you can pull out those savings and the gains on the savings and use them to supplement your retirement and it's usually tax-free, because if your life insurance policy is still alive, it protects you from taxation. Okay, and if you pass away, you transfer wealth tax-free to your beneficiaries. It's an incredible way to build wealth. It's not very well known, but it's part of my work has been encouraging our people to take advantage of tools like that, because you have peace of mind. You have four things, Brother Divine, four incredible things that come with that. You have growth for your money, which you don't get in the bank. You have safety for your money, which you don't get in the investment industry. You have tax advantages, which you neither get in the bank nor the investment industry. And then you have protection, your life insurance, which you don't get in the bank and in the investment industry. So let's say I have an IRA, or you have a 401k, and I have a cash value life insurance policy. And in your 401k, you are contributing $18,000 a year, Brother Divine.
Mm-hmm.
And in my cash value life insurance policy, I'm contributing 18,000 a year. So for contributing 18,000 a year, the insurance company is going to protect me for $2 million. If anything happens to me, my family gets $2 million. If anything happens to you after the first year of contributing 18,000 in your 401k, they get 18,000 plus minus any gains, plus minus taxes, and minus probate if you don't have a will. You with me?
Yes.
Now, if anything happens to me with my cash value life insurance in year one, my family gets 2 million. If I get sick or become disabled, I have 2 million to draw long-term care from. Now, if nothing happens to me, can I go in that policy and take the money out? Of course I can. I can go into my policy and borrow 5,000 without any penalties, without any fees. In your 401k, you cannot touch it until you're 59 and a half, or you have to pay penalties for 10% plus taxes. Okay, so it is incredibly revolutionary and very, very, very unknown. So, and all these other plans, is it to say that a 401k is bad? No. If your company is matching your contributions to your 401k, participate in that 401k, because the first rule of money is always to get free money. Okay. Now, the last point I'm going to make there is that think about you and everybody that's listening. Think about your estate. What is your estate now that we're speaking? And what do I mean by your estate? If you died today and all your liabilities were paid off, it means what you owe is paid off. How much money will be left to your name? That is your estate. Okay? Brother Divine, if every one of us looks at our estate, it's going to be pathetic. We're going to be shocked. We're going to be frightened, because most of us will leave absolutely nothing. In fact, we will leave a negative estate, and our families will be left paying for the debt that we incurred. Now, how do you or me create an instant estate? It is through insurance. So if you're already using a savings plan in insurance, you have twofold. You are building equity in a plan in which you have created a estate. So my $1,500 that I put in my life insurance policy created an instant estate of $2 million for me. But that money is also growing on an average 7.5% annually. I will never lose a penny, because if the market goes down, the insurance company guarantees me something. And all this is in a contract.
I have a question for you. It seems, now I like, not really a question, probably more of a statement which I'd like you to comment on. If somebody makes $100,000 a year, it might make sense to put away a lot of that money into maybe cash value insurance, because that you put away isn't taxed. Otherwise, if you just go into the bank to say, well, you make this amount of money a year, you probably take less, because you are being taxed on that $100,000. That's it. Am I making sense? I don't know. You want to elaborate on that,
Okay.
sir?
Yeah, so there are two things, right? So we should I should assume that the $100,000 that you're talking about is take home, right? So Uncle Sam always takes his money ahead of time.
Right.
Okay. So if you're taking home, your take home, your net income after taxes is 100K. Okay. First of all, the first thing you should do is try to save 10% of that. Your livelihood should be way under that. Okay, the problem is that most of us, when we make 100K, we actually live the lifestyle of 150K, so we're always falling short. So assuming that we took $10,000, what can we do with $10,000? Let's say our livelihood was between $70,000 and $75,000. By the time we pay mortgage, car note, bills, all that stuff, buy food, let's say it's 75,000, right? So we have $25,000 that we are able to save net of taxes every year. What can you do with that money to put it work for you? The first thing you want to put, you have things that come out. For most people, they have tithing, okay, and then they have maybe supplementary retirement plan. The rule of thumb is 10% for retirement, 10% for emergency, okay, and then whatever you are giving as tithing, if you're a tithing person, should factor in. So 30% of that 100,000 that you take home, 30% has already gone for expenses that are non-negotiable. Your retirement, your emergency fund, and your tithing, if that's what you work, or you balance it out. But you can take 10K or whatever and put it, because you need to have protection for your family anyway. So why not use that protection plan? Use the best one available for your family, which will give you long-term care, give you some cash accumulation, and also give you tax advantages. Another way that I like to illustrate that is, let's say, let's say I have 100,000 and I'm putting 10,000, 12,000 every year in my life insurance policy, right? My cash value life insurance. And I do that for 30 years. So what's 12 times 30?
I don't have my calculator with me. That's fine. People can do that later on.
What's 12 times 30? So $360,000. Okay. So I saved $360,000 over 12 years. And let's say in my cash value life insurance, I said it grows on an average of 7% annually, right? So let's just say at this point, I have $1 million in my life insurance policy cash value. You do the same in your 401k and you have $1 million. You save 10,000 every year in your 401k and it's grown up for 30 years to $1 million. Now that 401k grew tax deferred, okay? And you didn't pay taxes for the 10,000 that you were calculating, because every 401k comes out of your paycheck before taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay taxes for the $360,000 that you save before taxes, and you have to pay taxes on the $700,000 that it grew at your current tax rate. My 1 million and my 360, the 360 and the 700 or whatever that came to $1 million, I can take that 360 out because I already paid taxes for it. And I can take the remaining 700,000 out without paying taxes because it is protected by my life insurance policy. So when you see somebody with a 401k and they say, I have a good 401k, how much money in that 401k is actually theirs? They've not factored in taxation. At least 30% of that doesn't belong to them. And we've not even talked about whether it's going to stay that way till the time they reach retirement, because a market correction could wipe it out. So to your question earlier, it is smarter to use that because you give yourself protection twofold. You protect yourself against the loss of, think about this. If you passed away 5 years after saving in your 401k, all you get in that 401k is what you saved for 5 years. That's what goes to your family after it goes to probate and the state takes 5%. If you save in an insurance plan, something happens to you 5 years from now, or maybe 30 years from now, I've not touched that money. My family would walk away with $3 million because my life insurance was what? 2 million. And my cash value has grown over 30 years to another 1 million. So they'll pay $3 million tax-free to my family.
Well,
In your 401,
go ahead. Yeah, I have a
in your
question when you conclude the
401k, you
statement.
cannot
Yes.
boast for that. So, but go ahead.
Beatrice Fominen asked, where can we get this cash value life insurance? It's tasting very good, buddy. I should even call you after this show.
Is that Beatrice of the last time? I told her to call me. So part of the reason that we do this for the audience, right? Brother Divine keeps calling me a financial consultant. I'm actually an educator, but I have the added advantage of being able not just to educate people, but to help them implement. So I want our community to be educated on the basic things that are available around us to take advantage of in order to build and protect wealth for our families, right? We work very hard. For a lot of us, we work much longer than the people around here, but we don't take advantage of the things and the information and the knowledge that will put us ahead.
How can you be contacted,
Sister Beatrice?
Mr. Awa?
I can help point you to that. If you want to, just reach me after the show and I'll show you how to do that.
How can you be contacted?
832-573-7312.
How about by email?
It's my first name and Pius, Pius, S, my middle initial, and last name is AWA@gmail.com. No dots, no underscores, nothing. Just Pius S. Awa @gmail.com.
I'm going to ask you a last question. Again, that's because we intended this for to be an hour broadcast. Many Africans in the diaspora, when they work here, they want to open businesses back home. Either they're buying taxis, they're building houses, they're starting other businesses. Is that a smart way to do it? If not, why not?
I think that just from a common sense standpoint, right? It's always smart to be entrepreneurial. You cannot go wrong. The problem is preparedness. Where I'll draw caution is preparedness, Brother Divine. Most of us go into business out of euphoria for wanting to go into business rather than being strategic. So in you and I, in our particular context, where we come from, and this is different because I deal with some people that have businesses in Uganda, and I find that it's a breeze. I understand that East Africa is very, very
We have to. Yeah, we're having some bad weather in Maryland, so we will have to round up pretty quickly. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, oops, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm saying that we have bad weather in Maryland, so we'll have to round up. Yes.
Yeah. So, it's a common sense thing. Where I have an issue is when I run into someone, and I'll tell you a story. So 3 years ago, I sat with a young family in Minnesota, and I was educating them, I was talking to them, and I identified that they had young kids, they had responsibility, they needed some form of protection. And by that, I mean some life insurance, right? And I'm like, before you start investing and saving money, we need to protect this family in case something happens, that there's protection for the family before we can start doing any investment. They shut me down, and they shut me down because This guy loaded a container every month of I don't know what and shipped it back to Cameroon, and that was his business, and it was booming. He didn't see a need to save or invest in our system because for him, holding hard cash in his hands when he sold his goods made him feel better. That was a more, and in to your statement later, when he has that hard cash in Cameroon, he can buy land. He was building, and so he had in his head a clear picture of where he was going, and it was a very hard argument to push that, you know what, you need to think about the fact that your wife and kids are here and that you're running across the world, you're doing all these things, you're buying and loading container. One simple accident could set you guys all behind. Well, 3 years later, you and I know what's going on in Cameroon, and I don't need to tell you how his business is doing back home. Construction is grounded to a halt, and no shipping is going on, or at least not. And so we are back to square one, where now he's thinking about, you know what, maybe I should have listened to you 3 years ago. So it is about taking care of now when you plan for the future. You have to do it in an organized way.
Well, I know, again, like I said, it's bad weather here in
We run
Maryland.
out of time, right?
Yeah, and also bad weather. It's very, very stormy outside in Maryland here, a lot of lightning storm and so on. So that's why we have instability in electricity. So that's where we're going to round off here. Thank you, Mr. Awa. We will be coming back on the same subject sometime in future.
It's always a pleasure, Brother Divine, and I look forward to coming back. I had a lot more to share, but we ran out of time. Maybe we'll do a longer program next time.
Yes, sir. And that's where we round off the show. Thank you, Mr. Awa. That's where we round off the show. The next time we'll come on medical issues, we'll be talking about premature ejaculation. We'll talk about poor erection. We will also talk about stomach cancer. Again, when we come on next week, we'll have some medical topics lined up, premature ejaculation. We will discuss the things that matter. And that's how we run off the show. Chat Night Africa. On Chat Night Africa today, we had on our special edition, Mr. Pius Awa connecting from the great state of Texas City, Houston. My name is Divine Chamakong, and I'll meet you again sometime next week for yet another edition of Chat Night. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.